ToonGrin.com.
It sure was nice of your uncle to invite us to stay at his inn.
Hey, Uncle Bobby.
Freddy!
Gang, this is my uncle, Bobby Flay.
He must have fainted.
Hello and welcome to Watchin' Stuff, the show about watching stuff. I'm Nero, with me is my Canadian counterpart WHYBOY, and today we have a special guest for the 31st...
His 31st Scooby-Doo.
31st animated Scooby-Doo. I can't believe they've made 31 of these!
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Batman has less animated films, and he's Batman!
Yes,
That's true.
But we just gotta say hello to our special guest, Patricia Miranda of Old School Lane. Say hi, Patricia.
Hey, everybody. Hi. Thank you for having me here.
Well,
It's good to have you.
it's great to have.
So, curious, what's your affiliation with Scooby-Doo? Like, was there when you were a kid, or...?
Absolutely, yeah. When I was a kid, I remember, even before Cartoon Network had its original content, they would be featuring a lot of reruns from Hanna-Barbera cartoons, like the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Huckleberry Hound, and one of them was Scooby-Doo. And I remember that I used to see reruns of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, the Scooby-Doo movies, A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, and as time went on, then I started seeing a little bit more of the movies that they would be featuring in, like, Mr. Spim's Cartoon Theater and Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater, like Scooby Goes Hollywood and such. And then eventually I saw Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, and I started following that. I kind of, petered out a little bit over time, but I'm slowly getting back into, the newer stuff. And if you guys are interested on my podcast, Casual Chats, I invited WHYBOY and that long-haired creepy guy on my Scooby-Doo podcast that I did last year, so you can go check that out.
We'll link that in the description below, just to check out the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
It's kind of a bummer, by the way, all the Hanna-Barbera properties, they only kind of do Scooby-Doo. They don't really do the Flintstones anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, too, because, when you think back to, the 70s and 80s, almost leading up toward the 90s, they had this nice balance of featuring their Hanna-Barbera characters. I think some of their popular ones were obviously, the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, and I think even, to some extent, maybe, Magilla Gorilla.
No, he existed, that's for certain.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how I learned about, Birdman, is from Birdman, Attorney at Law, and then it's all this stuff is, pre-existing Hanna-Barbera stuff, because then it's oh, Mitor, I remember Mitor at one point, Barbarian Superman or something, which, my god, what a brilliant premise for a show. I don't know why that's not making a comeback.
Yeah, it's really...
Yeah, and there was also Space Ghost as well.
Space
I
Ghost.
even knew about Space Ghost even before Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And also Secret Squirrel. A lot of people seem to forget that Secret Squirrel was a cartoon back in the 60s, right before it was featured in Two Stupid Dogs.
Yes,
Right.
Nah.
They should bring those shows
apparently,
back.
according to Fred Seibert, the guy who's behind Frederator, he even claims that the cartoons that were featured in Secret Squirrel of Two Stupid Dogs are even better than the original because that they were able to put in a lot of unique gags and made the characters a little bit more fleshed out and memorable.
Well, you think in an era where we have stuff like Kingsman, where we have brilliant satires on the spy genre, a character like Secret Squirrel you think would be welcome in this day and age to be a really good comedic action-packed satire for 11-minute shots on Cartoon Network. Kind of like
Just
that's
Secret
fantastic.
Squirrel pop up here and there in the past few years. He's definitely trying to poke his head out into the zeitgeist of things, but hasn't yet.
Yeah, that's true. But nowadays, just like you were saying, Scooby seems to be the big Hanna-Barbera cash cow in terms of all the movies. You have a little sprinkle of the Flintstones and the Jetsons now and again, and Top Cat has their own animated series in, I believe, Mexico. But for the most part, it seems like it's very. I would like. Yes, right. I would like to consider that Scooby-Doo is like Sonic the Hedgehog in Sega's library, in which you have all of these iconic franchises from Sega's library, like Alex Kidd and the Gunstar Heroes
Billy
and
Hatcher,
Strider. Billy Hatcher, that's another one, yes. Streets of Rage is recently now getting Streets of Rage 4 after like almost 25 years since since Streets of Rage 3, I think, which is crazy.
That's like me and Capcom. Like every time it's like, look at all these properties you have, and here's Street Fighter. Okay, but I mean, you guys own like Mega Man. I don't know if you know this, but there's like this popular character you got, kind of famous really, called the Blue Bomber. I know, because at one point you made him green on a cartoon show.
Yeah. Well, at least we're getting Mega Man 11, that is true, but, there's all the other characters from Capcom, like, where's Gargoyle's Quest 4?
Darkstalkers, man.
There you go, Darkstalkers.
No love.
Yeah, so please, Warner Brothers, if you're watching, which I doubt, would like to see more integrations with the other Hanna-Barbera characters.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, and very least,
and also, yeah, and I did hear rumors about that they were going to do a Pebbles and Bam Bam spin-off, but that's yet to be confirmed.
Like, are they going to be adults, like with their own family?
I mean, they did that back in the 90s.
I remember that, yeah.
But right before, they had that TV show, which was trying to be like an educational version of the Rugrats, in which like they're back in their baby forms, and they've been stuck that way ever since. But believe it or not, they used to have like a lot of TV movies where you had Pebbles and Bam Bam as adults after the Pebbles and Bam Bam spin-off series back in the 70s. And they had their own kids that were twins, and after that, then they had another movie that didn't do as successfully, and then they reverted back to babies, and they've been like that ever since. But no, I think they're reverting them back to their baby form, very similar to that other spin-off that nobody talks about.
They're marketable that way.
That's usually the case when it comes to shows. Yeah, if you guys have noticed with Scooby-Doo, every once in a while now they just kind of poke fun at Scrappy to some capacity, because the popular consensus is everybody hates Scrappy.
To throw that around, and with the big anniversary coming up basically every year now, there's a lot of new sort of shows and movies that are coming out. With just Scooby-Doo and the Gourmet Ghost being the one that's big this year, the cooking Scooby-Doo movie, as we can call it. You can just basically
it should be perfect.
Yeah, it should be like when me and Nero first heard about this, we were thinking like, oh my god, a cooking Scooby-Doo movie, that's going to be so cool. They're going to get Gordon Ramsay and all of that. Because the biggest cooking name that we can get. But then we got Bobby Flay.
Yes. I was actually surprised when I first heard that Bobby Flay was going to be featuring in a Scooby-Doo movie. I mean, I guess it makes a little bit of sense because Bobby Flay, very well known for the next Food Network star alongside with Giada De Laurentiis. He has his own TV series called Beat Bobby Flay, where a whole bunch of chefs come by and they compete against Bobby Flay. So, yeah, Bobby Flay is one of the most popular celebrities on the Food Network.
Yeah, he's definitely got sort of a name out there. It was just definitely weird because basically me and Nero are just more in tune with like Gordon Ramsay and such, and he's just such a cartoon character in all of his other shows.
Well, like when you think about like a chef that's so ingrained into the pop culture, I think of Gordon Ramsay, I think of Emeril Lagasse, even Guy Fieri.
Guy Fieri would have been amazing in that. Absolutely. I would have definitely preferred Guy Fieri over Bobby Flay. It's not that Bobby Flay doesn't have a great personality in terms of being in a cartoon. It's just that it's not the right one. Whenever you see Bobby Flay on TV, it's always either one of two things. Like, he's always talking about, like, his southwestern cuisine. He's always competing against other chefs, kind of like smack-talking on them occasionally, or trying to see if he can be able to one-off them. So, I think that that would have been a lot of fun to see in this, but as, like, a standard personality, Guy would have fit in much better. Or maybe Alton Brown. That would have been amazing. Alton Brown and Velma pairing up together.
Like, something about Alton Brown is he looks so... For lack of a better word, he looks so normal. He's very average. He looks like any one of us if we had a cooking show, Like, he feels like the average Joe. And that's the thing, like, Gordon feels like the average Joe, even though he's, an amazing chef. Mm-hmm. And then you got, like, Bobby Flay, who you look at and you're like, you have that aura of celebrity kind of around you. Yeah. And it's weird because, like, Alton Brown, he had an educational cooking show. Like, he taught you about, like, the chemistry of cooking and stuff. It was almost like Beekman's World by way of like Bill Nye, by way of just a cooking show.
Yeah, pretty much so.
So
yeah,
it was
Good
really
Eats, by the way, for those who are wondering.
Good Eats, fantastic show.
Yeah, it's still one of the best.
Oh yeah, hands down. And like with Gordon Ramsay's, it seems obvious because it's like, when doesn't he have a TV show at some point on television about him yelling at somebody failing at doing something?
Yeah, I can imagine, him getting 2 pieces of bread and putting together to Shaggy. It's like, what are you? And then Shaggy's like, an idiot sandwich.
That would have been great.
Or Shaggy would just be like, I'm hungry.
He maybe just eats the bread on his face.
Really, that was mine and Taylor's pitch, was like, what if like Gordon Ramsay shows up and it turns out he's like Shaggy's uncle, to which then everybody in the group would ask, Shaggy, you're not Scottish. And he's like, on my mom's side. And that's it. Like, you don't get like a full explanation. It's just like, on my mom's side. And it's like, that's fair. We don't really often know about the Scooby Gang's family lineage.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the reason why they decided to have Bobby Flay as Fred's relative was because we already focus on Shaggy's relative and Shaggy's showdown. Yeah. So I guess they wanted to give a break, you know.
Fred is such a rich character.
Yeah, that sort of really touches.
Yeah, and Daphne is usually supposed to be like the rich character, but Fred can also be up there with money too.
Yeah, it's sort of Patricia. Like you really hit on a point that it really just hits it. Like, this almost feels like Shaggy's Showdown again, but written a lot better in a sense. Because as you remember, from just anyone who's watched this, like, they know that Shaggy Showdown, like, that's something that me and Nero hate so much. It
wasn't very good, no.
This felt like almost a redemption of that story in a lot of ways. It did a lot of things better, with just basically, like, a character from now reliving just the actions of their past ancestor and having to basically deal with the mystery centered around it. And there is actually a lot more of a through line there than there was in Shaggy's Showdown. And there are definitely like a lot of better ideas in this one than in Shaggy's Showdown. But let me just sort of explain the actual story of this. Yeah, definitely it's Bobby Flay and Fred. Fred goes to Bobby Flay's like personal little, like, I guess a bed and breakfast / cooking school thing.
It's over like an inn.
Yeah, basically, Fred and the gang go there just to say hello to Bobby, just to see his new cooking place, and for his like live stream cooking show that's going on there. When all of a sudden the Red Ghost pops up, basically go like boo, and just destroy everything and just get out of there.
Is anyone else upset that in film it's called the Red Ghost, but the box says Gourmet Ghost?
Yeah, that's kind of lame. I remember that video that you and Creepy did about the scary scarecrow, and the ghost turned out to be, what was it, like cornfelt clem or something?
Not the scary scarecrow. Who called it that?
They're both terrible names.
Yeah. But I can give credit to the Red Ghost because, discussions of the backstory of the Red Ghost was dating back to the Revolutionary War, like with the Red Coats. So maybe we can argue that, maybe this is probably the ghost of a British soldier. And maybe that's why he's red. So I would think that maybe at first, maybe I can see that. Because, we have this chef Edward Duflay, who is helping out the American soldiers, the French soldiers, and British soldiers by giving them food so that they can be able to warm it in their campfires when they're off to battle. And then maybe this ghost comes along and, scares them, and then, he yells, Red Ghost, and then he completely disappears. Like, I could believe that, but that's not exactly how they explain on who the Red Ghost is, which we'll discuss about later.
It still doesn't explain the marketing team of, like, and the movie will be called The Gourmet Ghost. Well, why?
Because it's got chefs in it.
There we go, it's got chefs in it, which, I'm actually pretty disappointed that they didn't utilize as much chefs compared to, like, in previous Scooby movies, in which they would have a whole bunch of celebrities based off of wrestling or musicians, and so I would have really loved to have seen more. The only chefs that we do get are Bobby Flay, Jada De Laurentiis, and Marcus Samuelson.
Yeah, it feels like it feels like such a missed opportunity, and it feels like the whole setup, the whole story, where we're just going here for like a live stream sort of thing, just for our cooking show, when it could have been more cooking based, like there's actual maybe a cooking competition sort of thing, so we can have more cooks show up and such. Maybe have the game actually
That would have
take
been
part.
great.
Yeah, which
Scooby-
right now, yeah, exactly. Right now in the Food Network, cooking competitions are the biggest thing right now. Ever since Chopped came out almost 10 years ago, almost every show tried to catch the lightning in a bottle that was Chopped into like making more cooking competitions.
That's Alton Brown, right?
Chopped? No, that's Ted Allen. Alton Brown does Cutthroat Kitchen.
Cutthroat
That's completely
Kitchen.
different. Yes. It's basically Chopped, except that let's just have Alton Brown give these sadistic challenges while they're
fun.
trying to prepare the main dish. That is awesome, by the way. It's a lot of fun.
And I think how cool that could have been. You could have had the Scooby Gang, like, entering it, and each individual member of the gang could have been attempting to cook, and it would have been interesting, because, like, you automatically expect it's going to be Shaggy. He's got to be the best cook on the team.
Yeah.
And then you could turn around to be like, wow, what if, like, Daphne or Velma, like, really... Because, like, with Velma, she's like, well, it's a science. You know? Oh, that makes sense.
Again, Alton should have been in this movie.
Oh yeah.
I mean, anybody of actual... Again, by the way, Dana Snyder's character,
Skip Taylor.
Yeah, Skip Taylor.
Skip Taylor, did anyone else feel like that should have been, like, Guy Fieri?
It would have made more sense. He was sort of that sort of eccentric chef character for the whole movie. So Guy Fieri would have worked well in that.
Yeah, and as for the sous chef, Sue, who has like this stereotypical German accent who's like really angry, kind of reminds me of Helga from Ratchet and Clank. You could have easily replaced her with like Alex Guarnaschelli or Anne Burrell, and that would have fit perfectly because they're known for being tough, no-nonsense female chefs.
Yeah, this feels like a movie that basically
That
has a
would've
lot
made
of
more sense.
placeholder ideas around it when they were trying to get the chefs and just didn't get enough chefs for the actual movie.
Do you think in terms of the celebrity ones, do you think like they pulled back on this because I think earlier this year they had the Batman one, because they had the one where he teams up, I think, with Batman Brave and the Bold, and that had like a
Could be.
bunch of DC superheroes in it. Actually, they even did a better job because it utilized a lot of detective characters, which is really awesome.
Yeah, that would have hit their budget really hard to get all those voice actors for that movie.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
But
So the basic premise that we're looking at is Bobby Flay, who apparently is Fred's uncle, I believe, in this.
Yeah.
He's running this bed breakfast TV show thing.
yeah.
Which I love, by the way, how the show's like, oh no, he might have to close this down, and it's like, you're rich. It's like, where's the drop? It's, oh no, he might not be able to. What was it that they said to her at one point? They're like, they mentioned like he might not be able to, like, he poured his life savings into this. It's like, well, last time I checked, he still does like television and he's kind of famous, so I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, you don't really feel bad for him. I do like how they set up the scene where you're supposed to feel bad for Bobby Flay, but when you put the reality into it, it doesn't really hold true.
Well,
Yeah.
like cinematography-wise, it's brilliantly shot with, like, you know, the Gourmet Ghost or the Red Ghost or whatever, you know, comes in and spooks everybody, and like everything gets ruined, and he's standing there in like the spotlight of the destroyed kitchen, and he just looks sad, and you're like, visually, great. This is telling you so much good emotion just through the visual aid. And then, like, the back of your head, no, he's richer than you, right? he's gonna be like totally fine after this, and you're like, there's no drama.
Yeah, I feel like the drama and the tensions were a tad bit forced because we already know that Bobby is going to be okay if, you know, putting in all of his life savings. I mean, he's still pretty well known in the Food Network. I mean, he still has his TV show, he still has his restaurants in New York City, so for the most part, I think that, you know, the tensions for, you know, trying to keep the inn intact is, it doesn't, like, bring in a lot of drama and suspense into trying to keep it afloat right before, this guy who comes along and says that he wants to buy the place, or the Red Ghost.
And
you ever notice that's a thing that keeps happening in Scooby-Doo? There's always like some real estate person that always shows up.
I always want to go back to all the old like episodes of Scooby-Doo and just to see which ones were just all based on real estate scams. Just count how many there are.
It's really weird they've never done... It's really weird that given... If you ever saw the Dick Donner Superman film, the whole magnum opus master plan of Lex Luthor is... If I, nuke California, and I could, get it off the map, I could get prime real estate that I could then sell... Lex Luthor should be a villain in a Scooby-Doo animated film. Where his whole plan hinders on a real estate development opportunity.
Yeah.
But yeah, just another part of the movie that feels a little bit off is just the Red Ghost itself, because the design-wise, it's a great-looking monster, big open mouth.
Oh my god, it's gotta be one of the scariest things they've got.
But yeah, it really is. It really is cool, and even the term Red Ghost, because it's a red coat ghost, is a great name for it. But what does it really do in the movie?
It shushes.
It shushes and floats around.
Sort of ragdolls around a little bit and shushes at you. It's actually kind of depressing because, I remember, Taylor and I were watching it, it's like, man, this is a really good ghost design. This thing is creepy looking. It's got, the really gaunt face with the, exaggerated kind of scream look with its long mouth, and it's got all these jagged teeth and these really gnarled limbs, and you look at it, you're like, wow, this is a horrifying thing. And the whole movie just sort of hey, and you're like, oh, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't even attack people. It just sort of floats vaguely after them.
Yeah, we just laughed our asses off at the one scene where the Red Ghost basically has all these papers and he's just trying to run through the bed and breakfast, and he just goes, I'm on the ground. Oh god, my knees.
It would have been priceless. It would have been priceless if he fell down the stairs.
That would have been awesome.
Oh, look, the ghost fell down the stairs. It's like that bit at the end where they're getting ready to do the unmasking, and what was funnel is a natural ingredient to ward off spooky inspectors.
Yeah.
And they throw it at the Red Ghost, and Daphne just goes, I don't understand, it didn't work. And me and Taylor are are you stupid? 9 times out of 10, it's a guy in a costume.
Yeah, and also, I actually did a little bit of reading on this right before we started, but the only way that fennel can be able to ward off evil spirits is either one of 2 ways. Burning it, or drinking it as a tea. Not sprinkling it, if it's salt.
Well, that just makes...
This isn't hocus pocus, in which, you get the salt and you be able to ward off against the witches.
They threw it into Sarah's face, and she's freaking out on her broom. It's dude, she ain't freaking out because she had because she's a magical being and salt was thrown at her. She's freaking out because you threw salt at her like a crazy person.
I did my eyes.
It's just weird. It's funny because they pulled onto supernatural stuff where back then when you dealt with supernatural beings, salt, iron, these things ward off these kinds of spirits. It was actually a very common practice. That's how you warded off goblins, ghouls, and such. So it's cool that they brought into that, but it just seems so weird and out of character that it's you almost wanted to bop Daphne on the head because it's oh, it's not a real ghost. Daph, 9 times out of 10, it's a dude in a costume. Why Daph, out of all times, would now be the time it's real?
Yeah, which makes it really weird because they also do those sort of jokes where Shaggy and Scooby just pull out flashlights out of nowhere. Just we're always prepared for this sort of stuff. So why isn't...
Since when?
So why isn't...
When?
Yeah, why isn't Daphne prepared just to say oh yeah, that's obviously not a real ghost?
Right.
I always prefer the humor when they Patricia, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but have you seen any of Be Cool Scooby-Doo?
No, I have not.
It's self-aware. So they acknowledge the tropes and everything that is Scooby-Doo. So in the first episode alone, when Freddy's okay, so Scooby and Shaggy, you're gonna lure the ghost out. Shaggy immediately turns around and he goes, why do you always pick the most cowardly people in the group to do this? And it's like, well, at least he's self-aware about, like, you know, it's true. You guys are the biggest cowards in the room. We probably shouldn't leave this responsibility to you.
Yeah.
And, like, it's great, because in that show, at one point, like, Shaggy acknowledges full well where he's like, so let me get this straight. You're going to choose the two cowardly guys in the room. No offense, there's Scoob. And Scoob just looks at him and he goes, keeping it real. And then Shaggy just goes into this big diatribe where he pulls out, like, action figures and he goes, so you want us to, like, lure the ghost out here? Why are we doing this, Fred? What's the end game? And Fred's like, you guys are the fastest runners.
There you go.
That's like when there's an acknowledgement, because they've been around for so long. Like, Scooby-Doo's been around for years. Like, everybody in some capacity must know about Scooby-Doo in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so to keep these things more fresh, they've been more self-aware in the more recent movies and such. Like, I could remember, like, I believe it was the Kiss one where Shaggy threw out all their clothing and all that. Daphne Villain just said, like, Shaggy, why'd you throw out our clothing? It's just like, and Shaggy's just like, why are you upset? We wear the same clothing all the time anyways. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
I think self-aware humor works better with a property that's been ridiculously around for a long time.
Yeah, I feel it's just a sort of a weakness in Gourmet Ghost, because it almost feels like it's going half and half in a sense.
It does.
Yeah,
because
and
that's
also,
where you get the book joke.
I feel like if you were gonna choose a celebrity, I mean, I can understand Bobby and I can understand Jada, but I didn't really get the point of adding Marcus Samuelsson. In Chopped, he's more like the gentleman judge. He's very sophisticated and he's very posh about talking about particular cuisines. He's not one that I think of when it comes to personality. Now, if you want to have somebody from Chopped, I can think of, again, going back to Alex Guarnaschelli, or maybe Scott Conant, or Aaron Sanchez, Amanda Freitag. But yeah, Marcus would probably be one that I wouldn't have chosen if you were to talk about one of the Chopped judges.
Yeah, and just
was he the one that, like, was snubbed by Shaggy?
Yeah, that was actually a really weird one where he talks about, like, oh, that was the best day of my life, where he actually just appears over to Marcus and his wife's book signing, and then he gives a book written by Jada, and he says, hey, would you mind signing it? And then there was, like, some sort of, like, minor grudge against Shaggy, and that didn't exactly go anywhere.
No, right? It's like, are they trying to do something? Which, again, if it was Shaggy and his uncle, it kind of still works too, because it's like, oh, okay, they're trying to topple him because his uncle's, like, you know, it's just like the vague moment of, like, they hate Shaggy.
Yeah.
We don't do anything with this, and it's like, oh, okay. I mean, Shaggy was kind of a bit of a jerk, I'll give you that much.
Yeah, I feel that leads to sort of the weakness of the mystery overall. It feels like a lot of the suspects just kind of have just very flimsy sort of motives, basically flimsy setups to them. Because basically, just all their motive is, they hated Shaggy. That's why you should suspect them. And it sort of just translates to each of the suspects. We don't really know really anything about them. We just know that they look pretty suspicious, don't they?
Yeah, you have that. You have the groundskeeper, Mr. No Say Worthy, who is suspicious because, you know, he claims that Duflé was a traitor. He wasn't an American hero. He was actually a British spy. And then you have the old guy who wrote the book who claims otherwise, that he was a hero. And then you have the real estate guy who wants to buy the place. And then you have Skip Taylor, who kind of acts suspicious at some points, but it doesn't really amount to much. I guess maybe, like, one clue that could bring it up is that the breathing and the shushing, it comes from his sleeping mask when he has sleep apnea, so maybe that's why they suspect that maybe he did it. So, yeah, I think that the mystery as to who the suspects was kind of weak, and I kind of sort of knew who it was from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah, in a lot of cases, the best Scooby-Doo mysteries are the ones where you have the most colorful characters that have actual, like personalities you can basically just pick out just easily out of that. You can't really just look at any of these characters and see them as just sort of like their own character. Like, what can we really say about the real estate character?
generic real estate Scooby-Doo villain who wants like real estate.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah,
Tell you, man, they should have like demasked him and been like, "Who was it? It was I, Lex Luthor. My plan was to get the kryptonite hiding under this villa, and then I could fight that confounded Superman."
It would have been just as
Who
satisfying.
wouldn't want to see Scooby-Doo and Superman? Who wouldn't want to see Scooby team up with Superman? He can hang out with Crypto, the super dog, and Streaky, the super cat.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, he and let's see, Blue Falcon have paired up many times. They even had the movie just a few years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be awesome to see Scooby and Crypto together.
Actually, that was the one bummer about that Batman one. No Ace the Bat Hound.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember that now. I don't really remember that much about the Blue Falcon movie, honestly. And this sort of make me think, like going back to just Bobby Flay and such. Like before this movie, I was thinking like I'm very nervous about Bobby Flay, whether if he'll like really play off the gang and such. Because the worst thing about these sort of crossover movies is when they treat the gang and then the crossover stars as just sort of two separate entities. Like they're not co-mingling, actually working together to solve the mystery, go through the adventure. But Bobby Flay actually worked well with the gang. His personality wasn't all that, out there and such, but he was actually competent in naturally the role of everything. The issue is just the mystery aspect makes everything sort of downplayed in a sense, and makes characters like Nacho the cat the sort of the stars of the movie.
Yeah, Nacho and Bella, which they are actually the cats of Bobby Flay and Johnny De Laurentiis. In fact, Nacho has more Instagram followers than the three of us put together. He is that popular.
Yeah. Well,
and if you're wondering, the fact that scene in which like Bobby and Jada like prepare them like nice dishes with fish sprinkled in herbs and with drizzles of lemon juice, that's a real thing. They actually do eat that way.
Yeah. I'm jealous of a cat. But to be fair, Nacho was probably the best character in all this. Like, Nacho to me almost took the place of Scooby-Doo in a lot of ways. He was the one that was basically being the most character-driven out of everyone.
That's true. He was pretty much.
I think what really threw me off, and I said this to you, Taylor, where once we got to like towards the end, I brought up where it's like, you ever notice they have like nothing for Daphne to do in these movies? Like, she never like contributes anything to the mysteries at these points. She's just sort of there because it's like, look, Daph, if Shaggy and Scooby are here and we wanted to get rid of the gang, somehow you're the only one that sticks around.
Well, Nero, that's simply not true.
Nothing for you to do.
Daphne did so much in this movie. She sent all those invitations at the end.
Yeah, and I think that wasn't she. Was it her or Velma was the one who found out about the lemon juice?
Yeah. I think it was technically both of them, but it was more just Bobby Flay just throwing those papers into the oven and just pulling them out.
Yeah,
it's a good thing these didn't like light on fire or anything, destroy this historical document that I cooked on with these cookies.
Yep.
Yeah, although to be fair, he didn't know that they were historical documents. When the writer/historian was giving the papers to Bobby Flay, he was telling them, "Oh, did you know that your great uncle invented takeout?" And he would like package the leftovers up and give it to the soldiers, and then they could heat it up. So when he heated up the food, that's when the inscription came along, discussing about plans for the where the Americans were going to be, which made them think that then Duflay was a British spy.
It just leaves sort of the funny sort of question of, those things are 100 years old, and you basically put cookies on them and such.
Yeah.
Isn't that disgusting?
That's ridiculous.
No, they're just moldy-ass pieces of paper.
Shaggy eats Scooby snacks, which we can infer are dog biscuits, so it's not like it's beneath Shaggy to eat stuff he shouldn't be putting in his mouth.
But it wasn't just Shaggy eating the cookies, it was everybody.
That's true, it was everybody.
Yeah, but the rest are also like hobos too, because they don't do anything. None of us Fred constantly like has a check just like, sent to him now through his phone. I guess Daphne too, because in some versions Daphne's also the rich one on the team. Yeah. And it's like they're just constantly receiving money, because it's like Velma could maybe she's like an actuary. Maybe she works at anywhere, like she's working remotely on a laptop. But like Scooby and Shaggy don't have jobs. They don't do anything. I think the most they did is like they made Scooby like a drug hound in
Zombie Island.
It's Zombie Island, where it's like he's checking My God, that's actually brilliant when you stop and think about it.
Yeah, and also there were the taste testers of the Vizier in Scooby-Doo and Arabian Nights.
Do they just eat the all
Oh,
the
yeah,
food?
They just ate the Vizier's food, and then they were trying to tell the story to distract the Vizier because he was disguising himself as a harem, and the Vizier was like, "I'm gonna marry you," and he's like, "No, please don't marry me. I'm gonna tell you the stories. I'm gonna be like Shahrazad."
Weird, but awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very true. Shaggy and Scooby don't really get a lot of employment in a lot of these movies.
Yeah.
If you want to count Scooby Goes Hollywood, where they're actors, and Scooby Doo is actually a TV show that they're playing, kind of like breaking the fourth wall. I guess you can count that as well. So sure.
They should really they should do like the Kim Possible thing. Like, I don't know if you guys remember that show, but
Sure.
In Kim Possible, Ron created something called the Nacho, which is like nachos inside of a burrito.
Yes, I remember.
And like in a later season, they pay that joke back, where it's like, by the way, Ronald, here's your residual check, and he has like a check for like 50K, and you're like, what happened? And it's like, all right, he gets residuals.
That would have actually made sense to include something like that in this movie, being the chef Scooby-Doo movie.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been awesome if maybe like Scooby and Shaggy created like a new recipe, and it became so popular that everybody's cooking it, and so Bobby Flay's like, "Hey, here's your residual check.
Yeah.
Everybody's preparing your recipe. It's the biggest hit ever."
Yeah, it's sort of weird because they do
man.
basically a joke like that because Shaggy and Scooby were going to go out to like a sandwich making workshop, and they just couldn't make.
Yeah, that's kind of weird too, because I mean, if Shaggy and Scooby were showing Jada how to make the sandwich, then yeah, that makes perfect sense. But again, if you want to add sandwiches and a celebrity who's known for that, Jeff Morrow, the Sandwich King. He should. That would have been nice if maybe he would have been like there for a quick cameo or something.
That was a funny gag, though, that it's like they're trying to walk out, and by the way, Freddy's like a total jerk in that scene where he's like, Shaggy, always ditching out at work, and it's like, what work? We're just driving around in your crappy van. And then we stop somewhere for a while, there happens to be like an epidemic of some kind happening. Telling me I don't do work.
Screw you, Fred.
Freddy's sure judgmental. But it's really funny because it's like, oh, we're gonna go. Like, we were invited to like a sandwich making seminar, and then like they get like chastised for it, and then we just cut to the sandwich making seminar, and everyone's like upset that they didn't show up.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
And I'm telling you guys, the talking sandwich making dog says he's gonna be here.
That almost encapsulates this whole movie in a sense. It's a lot of like really clever setups and all that, but almost disappointing payoffs.
Yeah.
Like, I think, in terms of the whole movie, the best part of it for me was definitely the backstory of the whole mystery. You get the redcoats, the turncoats, and really just the whole, like, almost answers in the mystery, which I'm gonna spoil here because it's such a well done mystery. I wanted to sort of discuss it a little bit. But in the end of all things, where the chef was basically traitor for a bit, it actually turns out what he actually wrote on those papers to send out to the British soldiers were all lies. And so the redcoats basically just came to his house and killed him.
Yes, and so he wasn't yelling out "Red Ghost," he was yelling out "Red Coats" when the Redcoats finally figured out that he has been sending them false information, and so they went over to his house and they killed him, which is to be expected because the Redcoats actually did that, in which they would kill off many traitors or people who are very patriotic towards the United States.
Yeah.
So that is very historically
Yeah,
accurate.
and that's where the piece of this sort of whole movie just shows up and shows like why Shaggy Showdown really failed, and this one actually succeeds more in talking about the past and the present, where basically there were good and bad things about the past. He was technically a traitor in a sense, sending out information and such, but it wasn't all black and white. While on Shaggy Showdown, my ancestor was perfect in every way, and I got killed by the 100% bad guy.
Anyone else feel like the concept of a chef utilizing an inn that brings in multiple people from the different sides of the war, but is like a double agent for George Washington, and misleading the red coat. Does anyone else feel like that's a cooler concept for a film?
I think so. That would have been great. I mean, I guess the closest one that I can think of in terms of that is, well, not like delivering food or sending messages, but Samuel Francis was very well known in his tavern for allowing George Washington and his men to like discuss about battle plans, and that was where they had their goodbye feast when the war was over, and it's still a landmark in New York to this day, so I guess that's the closest equivalent. But yeah, I think that plot of, you know, a guy who's very well known for cooking giving off false information to British soldiers via food, like paper wrapped up to keep food warm. I think that would have been a pretty cool little concept. Yeah.
It just seems like that's a more interesting story where it's like, man, that sounds so much better. Well, what's the other story? This rich guy did something, and he might lose a percentage of his money. Maybe. Ah, no, he'll probably be fine. It's okay.
Yeah, and also, you know, if you think about, like, the motives of the Red Ghost, who it eventually turned out, it was almost sort of fruitless, because the reason why the guy did it was because he didn't want to have the reputation of Duflate tainted. The fact that, that he might have been a British spy, but it turned out, he was a good guy all along, so he basically just did everything, all those schemes for nothing. So
That means I get a free pass, right? Nah, man, you get the chair!
Oh no, he just silently floated everywhere. What a monster.
I'm actually kind of questioning about this. If this guy is a historian and he wrote these books about Edward Duflate and he kind of like knows about the inn, I mean, if he would have went to the library and he did see the lemon juice and maybe like the, the empty slot where the papers were, don't you think he would have put two and two together that maybe that was what it was for?
Yeah, it does feel like it would just sort of connect much more easily than that. Because Daphne's...
My thing is, like, given how old he is, how many years does he have left to really become accomplished at this point?
Fair enough.
I'm already at that store, but I'll prove that Dufresne was a good man. Well, you're a criminal. Oh, but you turned out to be good. I get a pass. Needle! Ah! And then he left his wife a sad widow, who will eventually get revenge on the Scooby Gang.
I'd like to see that as the next movie.
Next movie.
Yeah, I think that's really it for the Gourmet Ghost. Let's just hit with our final ratings, and we'll just go down the line. What would you rate Scooby-Doo and the Gourmet Ghost? It is sort of like a tricky sort of question, because I don't want to say that it's meh, because I almost enjoyed it more than in almost a good watch, in a sense. So I guess I'll just go good watch, in a sense, because there's enough in it that it basically was enjoyable for me, but it is still a meh movie overall.
It's funny, but I'd go with meh. Like, I think with a friend, it becomes much more tolerable, especially because, like, you and me kept making fun of such just strange things, like, oh no, it's the Red Ghost. It's not really doing anything. It just sort of, like, lumbers around like a floating, like, ragdoll corpse. It's spooky looking. It's arguably one of the scariest monsters they've had in a movie in recent years, because, like, you go to, like, Scooby-Doo and the aliens or whatever, that weird one where, like, Shaggy dates an alien broad, and, like, the alien costumes are so stupid looking because they have, like, these big, huge Hanna-Barbera eyes, and you're like, oh, come on! Like, they don't need to be a xenomorph or something, but, like, make it at least look intimidating, for crying out loud. It's gotta be a monster. Like, who are kidding here? And then, like, the Red Ghost shows up, and it's like, man, this thing's horrifying. It's got, like, a gaunt face. It's almost like a corpse of, like, a soldier floating around. It's got, like, the cool glowing aura and everything, and you're like, man, this thing is genuinely horrifying looking. And it doesn't do anything. It just it's ragdolls around through the air. And it's like the polar opposite of, like, oh man, here's what it looks like. Oh man, here's what it is. Oh. Paper covers rock. This sucks. It's like it's fun to watch with a friend and, like, make fun of. As a film, though, I'd say it's pretty meh, because, like, the Scooby Gang kind of sucks in this, other than, like, friends related to somebody famous. Okay. Shaggy and Scooby eat. Okay. Daphne and Velma, they're here too. You know. Don't worry, we gave them their own live-action film. I'm sure it broke new grounds, and I'm sure it broke through that glass ceiling, and for generations will create many of great films to come, no doubt.
Oh.
I'd give it a meh. I really would. Other than the ghost looks cool, but he sucks.
Yes. What about you, Patricia?
I'm gonna have to go with NERO on this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to give it a meh. The reason why is because we were talking just about this before, that the backstory of the ghost and Edward Dufresne was much more interesting than the mystery itself. I felt that when you get down to focusing on the Scooby Gang and the suspects, it just kind of falls a little flat. And I just wish that they would have incorporated some, more celebrities into this movie that were from the Food Network. Maybe give Bobby Flay a little bit more personality. And I think that, I just felt like the set pieces of solving the mystery were there, but it just took a little bit of flimsy writing for not to connect all the way. And yeah, the red ghost is kind of lame. I do like the concept though, and I do like the design, but seriously, just this thing breathing. And just
it's not like it's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Like when Darth Vader breathes, it's horrifying.
Yeah, it gets so repetitive with
exactly.
the shushing too. They would just mention that all the time as well.
Yeah, there was one good joke that I did like about that, where Samuel's wife was saying, it's not like it's a ghost of a librarian, which is a reference to Ghostbusters, where they have the librarian ghost. But yeah,
she did shush you.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that whole shushing thing was just... it got overplayed. I did also like Nacho. Nacho was actually a lot of fun, and it did a lot more, than Scooby did, which kind of made Scooby a little bit superfluous. But there are good things in this movie. There are. It's just like we were saying earlier. There's some great set pieces, but the payoffs are a little bit disappointing. So that's why I give it my rating of 9.
Yeah.
I think the opening animation's really cool, actually, where they do the time lapse.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was actually very
really
solid.
well animated.
Yeah, so I guess it's definitely better than Shaggy's Showdown in that sense, but there are better Scooby movies out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's not going to hurt you if you actually do watch it. Enjoy it for the cool backstory and the cool looking monster, and you can also just make fun of her how stupid it floats around.
Our trips and falls.
Just my knees.
That would have been so funny. Rolls down especially because it's the old man in the costume, so it's even funnier the notion that he falls down the stairs.
My hip!
I almost died. I walked over active stoves for this. Oh my god!
Yeah, and he got the crapping out of the ending too. He got frying pan smacked in his head. That's a dead old man.
I want to see him in jail with other people that the Scooby Gang's gotten arrested. And I want to see him in jail. It's what are you in for, man? I was trying to prove that a individual in the community was not such a bad man after all. It's what? And I had an idiot. I posed as a man trying to do real estate. What are you 50 some odd guys in here for? Real estate, man. That was the plan. We were all working real estate, except for Charlie over there. He's a robot. He's from Funland. Because 9 times out of 10, it's real estate related. I'm surprised the Moon Monster Madness wasn't what was your whole plan? I wanted real estate on the moon. It was going to be amazing.
Oh, okay. Good. Just the word maze just makes me think also just this horrible CG maze at the ending, too.
Yeah, that CG maze took forever. It reminded me of Castlevania 64, where you have the protagonist wandering around in the maze and you have Frankenstein with chainsaws.
Yeah, like the movies.
Exactly, like the movies.
So, Patricia, you have anything you'd like to plug for your channel, your services?
Sure. You can find me at oldschoollane.blogspot.com. You can follow me on YouTube, which is youtube.com/PBM717. I'm on Twitter, which is at Patty_B_Miranda. I have a Facebook page, facebook.com/oldschoollane.
Yeah,
Awesome.
all links to those will be in the description below, and definitely be able to check out just the podcast of ours on our channel. We're on there sometimes, and we'll be linking directly to the Scooby-Doo one, where I and Creepy are there, and we'll talk about all Scooby-Doo things, and we'll be talking about more Scooby-Doo things in the future.
Oh yeah. They should make a freaking Scooby-Doo that's in the future, like Batman Beyond, but Scooby-Doo.
They probably are going to do that. They're probably going to do that with the
Yeah.
Jetsons, I would guess, sometime.
Oh, Scooby-Doo crossover with the Jetsons. They did it with the Flintstones, so why not with the Jetsons?
Scooby-Doo met the Flintstones?
No, I mean, no. The Flintstones met with the Jetsons.
Oh.
Yeah.
I want to see Scooby-Doo go back in time. Dude, I want a Flintstones movie, but like the ancestors of like the Scooby Gang are there. Scooby's like some kind of dinosaur dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he and Dino can be able to pair up together and solve a mystery about maybe something got stolen, like maybe go to Slade's, business, like something got stolen, like some new, like dino tech, and then you see the ancestors of the Scooby Gang coming along and then trying to solve it. So yeah, I mean, if they can pair up with, the supernatural guys, then I'm sure that they should pair up with their own Hanna-Barbera kin.
If the angle you can go with that is that they have like new tech, and it turns out the ghost the entire time was the Great Gazoo, because the tech they stole was from him, and it was super advanced. He's like, no, you dum-dums can't have this.
Love it.
It'd be perfect. I love the Great Gazoo.
He's so great. Oh, you dum-dums.
I'm the one that hates the Gazoo out of the three of us, it seems.
That's okay. I didn't like the little springy creature from the Jetsons. Yes, I hate
Yeah,
Orby.
I didn't like Orby that much, too.
Oh, I like
he was cute.
Orby's a cool toy.
Yeah.
That's like Orby's a cool looking toy.
Yeah, it's that's all it's there for anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's all he's there for. What else would he be there for?
Yeah, it's true.
He doesn't do anything. He already had
just
a
there
pet.
to-
He had Astro.
It's just there to look cute
Yes.
and bounce around, subtly saying, "Buy the toys, buy the toys, buy the toys."
It's perfect.
But I think that's it for the Watchin' Stuff podcast. And if you want to see more Watchin' Stuff, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell just for every future upload to begin with. All links to everything that we're doing are in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in
To ToonGrin.